The courtroom was unusually crowded that morning. Reporters lined the back wall, cameras ready, while curious locals whispered among themselves. Everyone had heard about the strange case involving a 10-year-old boy named Ethan Carter, a child already making headlines across the city for his disruptive behavior and shocking disrespect toward teachers, neighbors, and even police officers. But nobody expected what was about to happen inside Judge Fleischer's courtroom. Judge Fleischer entered with her usual calm authority. The room immediately fell silent as she adjusted her glasses and sat behind the bench. Court is now in session. Her voice was steady, sharp, and commanding. At the defense table sat Ethan, slouched in his chair with his arms crossed. Beside him was his exhausted single mother, Melissa Carter, who looked like she hadn't slept in days. Ethan rolled his eyes as Judge Fleischer glanced at his file.
"So," Judge Fleischer began, "Mr. Carter, you're here today because of repeated vandalism, school suspension, and disturbing behavior toward public staff." Before she could continue, Ethan let out a loud laugh. The courtroom froze. "You can't be serious," Ethan muttered loudly. Gasps filled the room. His mother immediately whispered, "Ethan, stop!" But he ignored her. Judge Fleischer slowly looked up. "Excuse me?" The boy leaned back further. "I said this is stupid. You're just an old judge pretending to scare people." A wave of shocked murmurs spread through the courtroom. Even the bailiff raised an eyebrow. Nobody had ever spoken to Judge Fleischer like that. His mother looked like she wanted to disappear. "Ethan!" she hissed, but the boy smirked. Judge Fleischer remained completely calm. In fact, her silence was somehow more intimidating than yelling. She folded her hands and stared directly at him. "How old are you, Ethan?" 10, he replied carelessly. "And do you believe being 10 excuses disrespect?" He shrugged. "Everyone leaves me anyway, so why should I care?" That sentence changed everything. The courtroom suddenly became quiet. Judge Fleischer's expression softened slightly. She leaned forward. "What did you just say?" Ethan looked away, suddenly less confident. But it was too late. The entire room had heard him. Judge Fleischer gently removed her glasses. "For the record," she said, "I'd like to ask Mrs. Carter a few questions." Melissa nervously stood. Judge Fleischer's tone shifted from strict to surprisingly compassionate. "Mrs. Carter, has something happened recently at home?" Melissa's eyes instantly filled with tears. She hesitated, then finally spoke. "His father left 8 months ago." A hush fell over the room. Melissa wiped her eyes. Since then, Ethan changed completely. He was once polite, top of his class, sweet to everyone. But after his dad left, he became angry. Ethan stared at the floor. Judge Fleischer listened carefully. "No counseling?" she asked. Melissa shook her head. "I work 2 jobs. I can barely pay rent." Now even reporters had lowered their cameras. This was no longer a viral courtroom drama. This was a broken family unraveling in public. Judge Fleischer turned back to Ethan. "So this isn't really about vandalism, is it?" The boy stayed silent. Judge Fleischer continued. "You're angry." Still silence. "You're hurt." Ethan clenched his fists. "And instead of talking about it, you've decided to make the entire world hurt with you." The words hit like lightning. Ethan's lips trembled. For the first time all morning, his arrogant expression cracked. Judge Fleischer's voice softened further. "You think acting tough protects you?" The boy blinked rapidly. "But disrespect isn't strength." Tears began forming in Ethan's eyes. "It's pain-wearing armor." The entire courtroom watched in stunned silence. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. And then something nobody expected happened. Ethan broke down, crying. Not fake tears, not manipulative tears. Real, uncontrollable sobbing. His mother immediately covered her mouth, crying too. The courtroom was emotional now. Even one reporter quietly wiped her eyes. Judge Fleischer allowed the moment to happen. No interruptions, no pressure, just silence. After nearly a minute, Ethan finally spoke through tears. He promised he wouldn't leave. Melissa started crying harder. Judge Fleischer nodded gently. I know. The room was dead silent. It hurts when adults break promises, she said. Ethan nodded. But destroying yourself because someone else hurt you is letting them win twice. Those words landed deeply. Judge Fleischer sat upright again. Here is my ruling. Everyone leaned in. Instead of punishment, suspension, or juvenile detention, Judge Fleischer ordered mandatory counseling sessions funded through a local youth support program. She also assigned Ethan to complete 40 hours of supervised community service repainting the walls he vandalized. But then came the part that shocked everyone most. Judge Fleischer looked directly at Ethan. In addition, she said, you will write me one letter every Friday for the next 8 weeks. The courtroom looked confused. Ethan blinked. A letter? Yes, Judge Fleischer replied. One honest letter. No lies, no attitude, just truth. About what? She smiled faintly. How you're really doing. The boy looked stunned. Why would a judge care? Judge Fleischer answered without him asking. Because sometimes children don't need harsher punishment. She paused. They need one adult who actually listens. At this point, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Even the bailiff looked emotional. Melissa quietly whispered, Thank you. Judge Fleischer nodded, then looked at Ethan one final time. You are not a bad kid. The boy stared up at her. You're a hurting kid making bad choices. That distinction changed everything. Months later, the story went viral for an entirely different reason. Not because a little boy disrespected a judge, but because Judge Fleischer saw what nobody else did. Pain behind defiance, hurt behind arrogance, and loneliness behind anger. According to later reports, Ethan completed every counseling session, finished community service, and submitted all 8 letters. His teachers reported dramatic improvement. No suspensions, no incidents. Grades rising again. 1 year later, Melissa sent Judge Fleischer a handwritten thank you note. Inside was a school photo of Ethan smiling. On the back was a message. He wants to become a lawyer now. Judge Fleischer reportedly laughed when she read it, and simply said, Good. The world could use one more person who understands pain.